Hello to all our grade 10 learners and welcome to our lesson. We are going to have a look at the market environment. We are going to specifically look at the last two components of the market environment and then the opportunities and threats posed by the market environment. Now, before we start, did you know that all business transactions take place in the market environment? For example, the buying of your products, the selling of products, and even the investing of money. So some businesses will invest excess money in other businesses, and this all happens in the market environment. All right, so let's get started. Our lesson objectives for this lesson is then where we will discuss the components of the market environment, and hopefully you will have such an understanding of these components that you will be able to identify these components from a given scenario. Okay, so then one specific component is the other organizations. We will also give examples of organizations which are components of the market environment. And then we will take a closer look at what the terms opportunities and threats mean, as well as some practical examples of each of these. So you must be able to identify opportunities and threats from a scenario or a case study and also make recommendations to address specifically threats. So this is our objectives for this lesson. Here is our concept maps. We will of course take a look at our components and then our opportunities and threats. Now you should already be familiar with this little diagram where we illustrate the three business environments. So of course we have our smallest one, and that is our microenvironment, which refers to the internal environment of the business. Our second one of course is the market environment, which we will focus on in this lesson. And then the last one of course is our macro environment. Then you should also already be familiar with the definition or the meaning of the market environment. So when we refer to the market environment, we refer of course to the immediate external components or external environment of the business. And everything that happens in this environment has a direct effect on the ability of the business to operate. So they will directly affect the ability of the business to operate. There we go. And then the last one, the business must always be able to influence the components in this environment, because remember, we want to control this environment as much as possible because they will directly affect our business ability to make profit. So that is what we know about the market environment. Then you should already also know the components of the market environment, our consumers being the first one. Then, of course, our suppliers and our intermediaries. And these three should already be familiar to you guys. Now, today's lesson, we are going to focus on the last two components, and those are the competitors and the other organizations. All right, so let's go have a bit of a practice with our pre-knowledge. We will look at some questions. Okay, so the first question asks, identify the business environment from the following statements. So remember, when we see the term business environment, it means the answer can only be one of three. It's either the micro, the market, or the macro environment. Okay, so in statement A, it says the internal environment. That's already enough for you to answer this question of the business. And of course, the internal environment is our micro environment. All right, so that is our first statement. The second one, or B, asks the immediate external environment of a business. And then it continues by giving us an example. For example, the consumer. So there's two clues to your answer. Of course, this is then our market environment. All right, so the market environment being the immediate external environment and one of the components being the consumers. All right, so that's our first practice question. Let's move on to our second one. identify the market environment component. So that's what we need to identify. So remember, the components will be consumers, suppliers, intermediaries, competitors, other organizations. So from the, or described rather, by each of the following statements. Okay, so statement A, Eli Milk Farm have a permanent contract to deliver milk to Danone used in production. So of course, Eli Milk Farm is supplying or providing Danone with milk. Therefore, we can classify them as a supplier. All right, so the first one, the component here will be supplier. If we move on to our next statement, Melinda Gordon Farmstall sells the produce from the local farmers. So the local farmers being the producers of the product, and Melinda Gordon Farmstall is helping the producers to sell the products to the consumers. So they are bridging the gap between the producers and the consumers, and that makes her an intermediary. Let me just wait here, my pen won't write. There we go. Intermediary. All right, so B will then be intermediaries. All right, so we are going to have a look at some new words in today's lesson. The first being competitors. So remember, competitors will be any business or individual that sells the same products and service or similar products and service to your business's products. So they are competing for the same consumers or the same target market. So when we look at the word, it's a business that sells the same goods and services as your business. Then our next two words is actually abbreviations. CBOs stand for community-based organizations, and they are organizations that provide welfare to the local community. So they will provide certain essential goods and services to the members of their community. And then NGOs is kind of similar to CBOs, where they operate only differs. But NGOs stand for non-governmental organizations. So they also provide essential services to help with certain needs in the community. All right, but later on we're going to have a closer look at those two concepts. Then more new words, the first one being regulator. A regulator is a government body, so it's an organization, institution that is working for the government. And what they do is they make certain rules and regulations to monitor all the activities and operations in a business, to make certain that all businesses function according to those rules and regulations or to a certain law. So they check up on the businesses if they are doing the right things. Then our next one is our strategic allies, and these normally are two businesses. And what these businesses do is they work on a certain project, and this project will then advantage them both. So they will both get competitive advantage and marketing from this project. So just for a specific project, they work together, and then we refer to them as strategic allies. Our last word you should be familiar with is unions. Unions is then a group of workers that protect the interest of their members. So that is our new words for this lesson. Right, before we continue then, guys, let's just take a little short break, and I'll see you now.